Well, welcome back to our listeners to another episode of the Creator Sessions. I'm Tala, I'm your host again today. And this is another very special episode in our Emirati Women's Day series, where we are celebrating the efforts and achievements of some of the amazing Emirati women in our network. So I have the privilege to be sat here today with the highly impressive Aida Al Busaidy. Aida is the Associate Vice President of Consumer Advocacy over at Dubai Economy and Tourism. She also has not one but two consultancies. She works on campaigns across multiple markets that serve to promote Dubai as a touristic destination in collaboration with celebrities, influencers, content creators, and what have you. And frankly, that's just a very small portion of all of the hats that you wear. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for that very lovely intro.
You genuinely have an entire laundry list of achievements and of genuinely amazing things to be celebrated about you that serve to really benefit, the future of our nation. And you are one of the greatest advocates, in my opinion, for Dubai, for women in Dubai as well. And for the future of this nation.
Thank you.
Yeah, of
very
course.
much.
I think we have so much to get through, so we could just jump right into it.
I'm ready.
To some of our listeners who may be less familiar with your work, could you tell us a little bit more about your work at ZET?
So I've been at what is now DET for a decade.
Wow.
And I think it's been such a transformative past 10 years. Growth-wise for the city, for the entity, and personally as well. When I first started off, I was in the PR division, and then obviously as social media picked up, platforms and digital ecosystem became a little bit bigger. And then the rise of, what was then called influencers, but we've transformed the terminology now. Yeah, content creators to key opinion leaders is something that we use internally. Because I think there's several people who kind of fall into that category who have a level of skill set and talent and have so much to give back that, I think they don't want to be termed the word influencer. So it's kind of evolved. So around 2017, they were like, hey, let's just start up this division that actually kind of has this ethos. And we created, I would say, a science out of something that's very creative, very artistic, and linked a few ROIs and some very critical KPIs because, it's very difficult for marketeers in general to say, hey, give me a bunch of money so that I can do something. And then people come back and say, well, what did you give me back in return?
Yeah.
So that role has evolved, and my position primarily is very much more on the strategy level. But I like to get down and dirty and lift up my sleeves. So you'll see me running around.
Absolutely. And we have.
Yeah, and on shoots and building itineraries for people and really kind of building that level of advocacy that people don't see because authentic content creation really comes from the belief of you having done something that's interesting.
Yeah.
So anybody can go to, I don't know, the Burj, for example. But what's your story with the Burj? And I think that's essentially what we're trying to build. And if you have 20 people or 200 people, 2,000 people who all go to the Burj, you have 2,000 different stories.
Exactly.
And you stitch that up. That's kind of like the storytelling of the Burj. So expand that to the city of Dubai.
Definitely.
And then multiply that with X number of countries.
That is no small feat.
No, it's not.
In a lot of ways, also, you were one of the people kind of on the forefront of this key opinion leader marketing and involved with bringing a lot of the big names to Dubai for different collaborations, different key pieces of content. How do you kind of, first of all, how do you kind of have this proof of concept for that? Was it difficult to get the buy-in? Of course, it's no easy task.
Yeah.
And second of all, what is that selection process like and who and what determines what makes a good advocate or collaborator?
So I'll maybe step out just a little bit outside of my DT role, working with high-profile individuals and key opinion leaders, something that I did even before I got to DT. So bringing that knowledge and kind of that path and process into play. I think there's a few things that people really need to understand. We shouldn't be chasing numbers Because at the end of the day, when you strip all the numbers, when you strip all the social media platforms, what's the reality of the person?
True.
From the interest to the link to the destination. And I think community feel and advocacy. So we actually find out what the layer is before we go out and speak to the people. So it's not like, oh, I want X person to come here. It's about, what does the city need, and does this person fit that story?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so you marry those two things together, because at the end of the day, one can't work without the other one. And I think if you put too much emphasis on, oh, I want to bring that celebrity to come to Dubai, then what happens is you kind of really dial down on what the city has to offer. And there's so much that the city has to offer. Like, we haven't even scraped the surface when it comes to, telling our story or telling the narrative. And so, yeah, the proof of concept is essentially, first, what does the city need? And then, does it actually require for us to work with a celebrity or a content creator or a key opinion leader? It could be done through several other ways. It could be done through, we let's take gastronomy as an example, right? Does it mean I need
huge scene
it's
here?
a huge scene, right? So the ethos is essentially, do we have the right infrastructure to have the right type of restaurants or the F&B outlets? And once you have that, do we have the right type of chefs, the right type of service, to actually offer that? So people want to come to Dubai and open up their restaurants, or people actually open up their restaurants starting out of Dubai. So now those Michelin star chefs, whether they've been awarded previously or awarded through our current Michelin star guide program, essentially are the key opinion leaders. I will fly out to go eat at that one restaurant that's a 3-star restaurant because that Michelin star chef is there.
Absolutely.
So really kind of, creating, like, as I said earlier, a science and a process out of it, and then expanding that. So not every storytelling is going to be the same. Not every pillar, not every person is going to be the same, but you're definitely going to find a lot of synergies and, mixing and matching people as well, bringing that chef from, this country who does, I don't know, that cuisine versus, a local chef versus somebody else, maybe from the East. And that becomes a story that you really want to share. And that brings people together. So the influencers will want to be part of that storytelling.
Absolutely. I don't think people realize just how much thought goes into that, because I can see how the whole demand for a celebrity or a big name chef or whatever it just can be frivolous, and it could be like a wasted effort if you're not really aligning the ethos of the city with this so-and-so opinion leader's brand and what they're bringing to the table. So it really is an exercise in bringing the right people.
Yeah. And it works the other way around as well, right? I mean, if people of a very high caliber, these big celebrities, when they come here, they really want to understand the soul of the city, because what happens then is they give their all. They want to be a part of the city. They want to be part of the storytelling. And that makes it even more beautiful, because once you remove the pizzazz being famous, they're just like you and me, and that's a nicer conversation to have.
Absolutely.
Because then they become advocates of the city, and they automatically talk about what they love, what they've seen, where they went, who they've spoken to. So, I mean, I have to say, I love what I do, because it's about the people and about the story.
Yeah, and it's really also the city that you love and advocacy for your home, which is such a kind of an honor and a privilege to be able to do, I think. I think it also works in reverse. The glitz and glam of the city can sometimes be, okay, we've seen it, we know, but these people who are coming here, they're really wanting to get to know the heart of the city and getting to know the soul of the city.
100%.
And so, that's awesome. So since we're getting into the celebrity stuff, we obviously have to ask a few questions. I mean, you've worked with some really big names.
You can't ask me who's the most difficult. I'm not going to answer that.
I just scratched that off the list. You've worked with the likes of Martin Lawrence, Eva Longoria, King Philip. The list goes on and on and on. I wanted to ask you more specifically, Chris Hemsworth. Who would you say surprised you the most in person? Like, who differed from their public persona in that, for instance, we hear Chris Hemsworth is very humble, very friendly.
They're all very humble and all very friendly. I can't pick and choose one. Mm-hmm. I think the more time you spend with somebody, the more you'll appreciate them. You know, it's all in the conversations that you have. I think the one that I would maybe point out the most is Hans Zimmer.
Oh my God.
Yes, I know. I have goosebumps every time I talk about. So, you know, before his concert, I had 10 full days with him.
Wow.
And so when you have that amount of time with somebody, it really adds layers of perspective. You already have respect for this person who
Yes.
touches everybody
So many people.
but then, you know, when you get to sit with and you know, I've heard him speak and you know, I've heard his notes of appreciation and, you know, words of wisdom, but it's just so different when you are with them and you get to see everything around that persona, you know, the hard work behind them, the family values that they have. So I think it's less about who it is and just about the amount of time that you spend with them, because you have to be willing to put in the time.
Yeah.
And
You're getting to know that person. Really.
and listen, right?
Yeah.
So the more I listen, the more I know this is the type of journey that I think they need to kind of take, and less about what I think would be the right places to go and more about showcasing the variety of what could match what their ethos is all about.
Absolutely.
And you know, and learn how to step back.
Yeah.
You'll very rarely see me with or have a lot of photos with it. I'm usually the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is it's not about me shining. It's about them understanding and kind of connecting with the city as well. And the same goes for the rest of the team as well, you know, and you can't do it alone. So once you develop that level of trust and communication, everything else just kind of falls into place.
Absolutely.
So I don't have a favorite.
Well, I mean, Hans Zimmer is a fantastic answer. But yeah, I mean, I think we can see that too. I don't think it's a disparity from his public persona.
100%.
So you've had obviously so much experience in this space, so it might just be a no to this question. But I ask because I've also done very few, but a few interviews and whatnot with some celebrities, some Disney stars, some Khaliji celebrities, mostly for you guys, for the festivals over at Dubai Economy and Tourism. But have you ever felt in any way starstruck by somebody that you had to work with? It brings to mind one occasion where I was said to speak with Mohammed Abdo.
Yeah.
And growing up in my house, it was like the three legends of like Arabic music, Fairuz, Kulthum, and Mohammed Abdo. Like it's kind of just like an untouchable figure. And then I had my parents in the back of my head going like, don't forget to tell him that we love him. We went to do the quick interview on the spot, and he invited us on stage for his sound check.
Oh, that's
to do the. My heart was pumping so fast.
Oh, wow.
Have you ever been there? Have you ever felt that way?
Maybe in the beginning of my career, I think there's so much that's put into making that person who they are.
Yeah.
And I think when you're slightly younger, and when you don't know what your footing is like, it's a little bit daunting, I think. I would say there's one that I would probably be very
scared to share.
I haven't, we haven't met yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm manifesting it.
Okay.
So some people who, well, if you follow me diligently on social, and I usually just post a lot of memes, a lot. I've been very clear about who I'm trying to manifest.
Okay.
So sometimes I feel like, okay, if you say it too much, it might not happen.
Fair enough.
But maybe if you say it enough, it might happen.
Fair enough.
So
I'll do some stalking and find out later off camera. But I am manifesting that for you too. Awesome. Yeah, I assume at some point, you know, it just kind of becomes not necessarily routine, but you're there to do a job, and you can be very impressed with someone and still manage to.
And I think, you know, for me, I think less about my job and just more about my personality, just as Aida, not as Aida, the employee or the boss or whatever. I think I get impressed by values.
Yes.
And, you know, I think when you have such little time with people, there's only like 1% that you could extract from them. And, you know, when I watch movies, it's, I took this class in college, which basically helped us assess like what movies and films are all like. I feel like you just have to strip the person out of their role.
Yes.
And just look at them for who they are. And I feel and I just take that track all the time. So unfortunately, it's all business for me.
Yeah.
And then when I clock out, it's not so business for me. Although my husband will tell you the opposite. He'll be like, she's like a tour guide every time someone calls her. Yeah, like, oh, take that straight and you'll get to that. And I'm like,
I get it.
Thanks a lot.
In a lot of ways, when you, I guess, love your home, it's really nice to be able to translate that into like an aspect. I don't know if it's like the personality informs that, or if it's a love of the city that informs the personality. But I'm the same way. And I get very excited when anyone talks about Dubai on any of my favorite shows, or whenever anyone comes to visit. I just want to show them, you know, my Dubai. So
and I like discovering new places and new things. People sometimes. So sometimes people will be like, "Oh, have you ever been here?" And you know, Buqtair?
Yes.
So it's so funny. I actually missed the boat when it was just a kish.
Okay.
So I went to the fancy one, which is wow. And when everybody was talking about it, you know when you're like, oh, I should go.
Absolutely.
And then I never went. And then when I finally went, I was like, darn it.
Yeah. You missed the magic.
No, I missed the magic of the kish.
Remember when salt was just a bus?
Exactly. When it was just a salt shaker time in a bus. So yeah, I mean, when you know what's right there, I think, and I think the beauty of it is when you get an opportunity to work with so many of these people, you also get a chance to rediscover,
definitely,
re-fall in love again with your city so much. And so yeah, I think I got the best of lots of worlds
too. Oh, it's such a quickly and like ever evolving city, not necessarily changing, but evolving. It's just you're constantly rediscovering.
100%.
I kind of want to go back speaking a little bit more about your career journey, because you've been at DT now for 10 years. You studied journalism though.
I did.
And then you went from there. You worked as a columnist. You went on to do TV. So yeah, could you tell us a little bit more about that?
So when I did those two things, I had a full-time job as well.
Wow.
Somebody told me when you're in your 20s, any opportunity that comes to you should always be a yes. It should never be a no. And I think that's we have a big issue with people in general who just say no first. So I tend to say yes, and even if I don't know how to do it, I'll figure it out. Unless it disrupts my time, because I time box everything. So after I graduated, I actually started in a PR agency. And while I was in the PR agency, I got the opportunity to start emceeing as well as start a column in the then Emirates Today. So it was a weekly column all about, life from an Emirati woman's perspective. So it was a fun column, very quirky.
Love that.
Sometimes when I look at the writing, I'm like, I know. Could have written better.
I guess the same way.
What am I doing?
But at the time, you're like, this is gold.
Gold. People are going to read this.
Pulitzer, here I come.
And then some. Anyway, so fast forward to that while I was still, and then the newspaper came to, a few changes. And it was one of my friends who actually suggested me for the TV show, just her say. So it was meant to emulate kind of like The View. So for women, kind of just talking about, leisure stuff, no politics, no religion. So while I was still in my PR job, and then moved into Dubai Holding, switched from, being a columnist to a TV presenter, just did that for about a year. Obviously, the only couple of social media platforms that were out there were Facebook and I think LinkedIn, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
That was about it, So obviously, if you were on television back in the day,
it was a big deal.
That
it still is.
Yeah. 2007, it meant something.
Yeah, it was all of the things.
It was all of the things. So I got stopped a couple of times, and you're the girl on TV, and I'm like, yep, that's me. So yeah, I did that for a bit, and but still had my day job. So but the thing is, these were just like weekly stints. So it didn't take up too much of my time. You know, I could submit the column. I had a deadline once a week, was 500 words. So, but I really just wanted to learn.
Yeah.
Because there was so much, and I'm going to be very frank right now to you and to the audience as well. There wasn't a really good perception of Emiratis in general. And you're talking about 2003, 2004. There was a lot of perception of being lazy. Oh, they're all rich. They're just waiting to get married for the girls. And so there was a lot to prove. And it was so interesting to see so many negative perceptions back then. You don't see that anymore right now. But when you've gone through that journey of, being in the industry for 2 decades, it was very disappointing, but also a really big opportunity, and I don't want people to ever say that again. So whilst it was really nice to be the first female Emirati on English television in the UAE, there was a lot of responsibility that came with it as well, right? The first English columnist as well, in Emirates Today, there came a lot of responsibility as well. So you have to maintain that over a period of time while still maintaining your values, while still maintaining, making sure you're with your family, being in your early 20s and going out with your friends. So there was a lot that was happening. So I took it on as a personal challenge. And I think because of that, it opened up a lot more doors for future things. Because, when you decide to, I don't want to call it risk-taking, to just really step out of the comfort zone, and there were many others that were doing it, but we weren't all connected. So now we're a lot more connected. There's a lot more conversation. So now you have hundreds and thousands versus the tens to hundreds. But it always takes that one. And I'm glad that perception from, 20 years ago no longer exists, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Very well said. And that is so much to take on.
Yeah.
You really put that burden on yourself.
Yeah.
And very, very commendable. And you sure did do it. But I think that perception also lit a fire under so many young Emiratis at the time as well.
Yeah.
To really they had something to prove.
Yeah.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, especially with the work that you do, you are building perceptions. You are building, well, not even perceptions, but actually showing the reality, really. And I think that's one of the huge things that I've also noticed a huge shift in perception on, and something that I advocate about. And it's only getting more and more apparent just how driven the Emirati youth are. I was, in the last episode we spoke with Mariam Namrefi about the experts program, that national experts program, which she had also gone through. And it's just so impressive what they managed to achieve.
So many changes, and they're all for the good, right?
Absolutely.
We're paving a lot of those ways, and it's interesting because back then, today obviously you can take your pick out of who and get connected. It's so much easier to get connected, but the other aspect also of being able to tell a story from the Emirati side, be female or not female at all, is we were allowing people into our lives, because you would rarely, some of the comments were, I've never met an Emirati in my life.
Oh, no.
Like, but no. But the thing is, I was looking at it from the first person.
Yeah.
Like, I meet a lot of people, but then it's the opposite for them as well. So you always have to learn how to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And then, it's not about, being not reserved anymore. It's about, why has this not happened before? And there were many of us that were doing it. And they're, especially on the male counterpart side. And we had the Young Arab Leaders program back then. It still exists right now with Mona Gurk. And so there was a lot of conversations then, and then smaller things started spurting up as well.
So, and social media, I guess, also helped by that. So kind of going back to a little bit of your experience in the comm sphere, we've noticed, or we've seen, all of us have seen the likes of ChatGPT and AI integration really changing the game and a lot of ways threatening our jobs. What are your thoughts about something like ChatGPT and AI being used in communication more and more?
You know what's so funny? If you look back at comms in general, from people writing on walls to communicate, to telling stories, if you're a natural storyteller, it doesn't matter the platform or the modem. Because when TV came along, everybody got threatened.
Yeah,
But there was so much opportunity.
true.
And then after that, color TV came on. And there
Not
was,
color.
yeah, not so color. And then color with voice came on, but it opened up opportunities. So what happened was, when there was no voice on television, people who didn't have a good voice to share really thought that they could no longer act. But then they had voice experts, so that opened up new jobs.
Yeah.
And then came radio and so on and so forth, right? So at every stage, I feel like there's always going to be panic, because as humans, we don't like change.
Absolutely.
And we don't like conforming to change. But as much as I think that, I don't want someone to imitate my voice, I also can take a look at it and say, well, wait a minute. How have I thought about it in the best way possible for me to benefit out of it as well? So I think with every change, there's an opportunity. You really have to kind of find out what that opportunity is for you, for your entity, for the people around you. So I'm not scared of AI. If anything, I think we just really have scraped the surface.
Yeah.
And if you're scared, I don't mean you, Todd. This is it's not direct. No, but when as a comms person who genuinely wanted to, go into the field of study. So it wasn't just journalism that I studied in university. Throughout my high school, I was in declamation contests and writing competitions. So the love for comms started when I was a lot younger. And then I solidified that with an education and got the job and did all these. So I diversified my modeling of comms. So today, if somebody comes with ChatGPT, AI this, WXYZ, whatever, why should I be threatened? Because I already have that strong base.
Yes.
And it's so interesting to see people who are like, this group of influencers who now are like, I don't know if I'm a content creator. I'm like, okay, fine. What content do you create? Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's a group of people who are content creators, and then
Real creative.
Yeah, they're really creative, and they've changed the narrative of creating content and generating businesses and making it into an educational model. So we really need to step out. And so for that category of people who basically said, you know what, I want to be famous. And I say this because I have children. And at one point,
They want to be content creators.
they want to open a YouTube channel.
Yes, I knew it.
But then I actually said, okay, guys, you want to open a YouTube channel? I was like, what's your plan? What's your plan?
How old are your kids that you're asking them for a business plan?
They're 8 to 10, and they made one. They made a business plan. I swear to God. I was like, what is your YouTube channel? What is it going to be called? What's your bio? What are you going to tell people? So they're like, Mama, it's all about challenges. I was like, okay, what's your first 10 stories that you're going to focus on?
And what impact will they have?
And they wrote it down.
No, they didn't.
I swear to God. I should have taken a picture and they wrote it down.
That is
like,
wild.
if you write it down, it becomes your vision board and it becomes your reality. And I know that they're not going to continue and they're not going to focus on it because they haven't even looked into like video capabilities, time frame, and all that other stuff. But they have a vision,
which is the most important part.
So going back to your question, I don't think you should be threatened by anything new that comes up, because we're in a stage of our global transformation where things are popping up every which way and you can't stop it.
Yeah.
Because that's progress.
Yeah.
But with progress means your mind needs to be as progressive. But if you're stuck in, I don't know, 2019.
Late.
There we go. In with the terms. Then it's going to upset you, and
Absolutely.
and you're going to be fearful. So rather than looking at what are the opportunities, you're just going to be looking at, oh my God, I'm probably next in line to be fired.
You're right.
Some machine's going to get me, and that's it.
You're absolutely right. And it's quite nice to see how you've sort of reconciled, and not many people have at this point. I think people feel threatened still, but that they'll mellow out. But you've reconciled your own, love of writing with what AI technologies can help you kind of, accentuate that and help you kind of develop that even further, rather than fearing that it's going to take away your love, because it's not. Effectively, it's just going to help support that. And we don't really know where it's headed. But
if anything, I'll make it do all the menial jobs that I don't want to do, right?
Exactly.
I like narrate, a memo, for example, which is like the most boring thing one could do.
Who wants to do that?
Nobody. AI, ChatGPT.
Exactly. And you hit the nail on the head that people are always going to fear change. Video killed the radio star, and then YouTube killed the video star, and then, streaming killed the TV networks. And at every one of those steps along the way, it was boohoo, and then we saw huge potential in the next thing. So here's to the future, really. So the many, many hats that you wear, you also have your own consultancy, Natija.
Yeah.
You work with some of your people in your network and whatnot. Tell us a little bit more about the work that you do.
So we decided to create Natija mainly to support smaller type of businesses. And I'm really happy to say that a lot of my friends who decided to kind of venture into their own realm, not everybody work 9-to-5 job and then some. And so what we do is essentially we do the strategy, we do the consultancy for them to actually develop their storyline a lot. And so it's a little bit one-off. Obviously, budget-wise, they're not very big, but the good thing about this, the entail, is essentially leveling up because you're able to offer a skill set where somebody else can benefit. And this could include everything from the naming of their business to what their lookbook could look like, for example, talking about them. One of the things I also do on my social media is I really promote, like anytime I get items from there, as I really help promote it as well,
cool.
Because there's so much... I wouldn't say marketing, but there's so much time and effort that's gone into their work.
Yes.
And in the clutter of everything that's out there, and, we have access to all the global brands and, Middle Eastern brands and so on and so forth, somebody needs to kind of show a little bit of love, which obviously we try and do.
Support small businesses.
All the time.
Small to medium enterprises.
Especially during Ramadan.
Absolutely.
Like I feel like
people work from their heart.
Yeah, like
they're hungry.
Can I send you a jalabi? And I'm like, absolutely, I'll absolutely wear it. And I wear it, and I wear it with pride. So actually what I'm wearing today is by one of my friends as well. So
I love it. To the listeners who are on audio, it's a very beautiful satiny anaraya. Yeah, jewelry. There will be photos for reference. Before we move on, I wanted to also ask you if you had any words of advice, having had the career that you've had, for young people or young Emiratis looking to get into the comms space.
So I mentioned it earlier. Can't remember which part of the conversation, but learn not to say no. In the first 5 to 7 years of your career, what I see, and this is not all the time, but sometimes, is a lot of people are very happy with just being told what to do and then that's it. But I'd like to see people not only being told what to do, but to question it and to add a little bit extra.
Absolutely.
I'll give you an example of something that I did. I think I was 21. I just want to make it very clear. When I first started my career, we were still faxing letters.
Okay.
Yeah?
Okay.
I know people
certainly don't look at it.
We were faxing letters. Yeah. Okay. And I worked at a PR agency. So, when you're in the PR team, we had to send we had to fax letters, individual letters. We would print it out, type it out, print it out, and you would fax it. You would wait for the fax to get there, to get the toot. And then you don't know.
Was the dial-up not working?
No, I mean, You don't know because not everybody had email, and there was a company email and or to the editor.
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was going to get to the editor or not.
Fair.
So there was a lot of waiting. You didn't know if they would confirm. So you have to wait and wait for the fax to come back again for confirmation.
Yeah. Bring back faxes.
No. Just talking about it makes me feel so tired. But we did it.
Okay.
I did it.
Yes.
And so that was my job.
Mm-hmm.
And mind you, this was like at the start of my career. And there was a proposal. There was a request for a proposal. So an RFP that came our way for Sheikh Zayed, Baba Zayed, Allah yarhamah, from the post office, I remember. Because they were creating the largest post stamp collection of Baba Zayed.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
And but then to actually collate all of it to make it into a collage of him. And so this came in, and I remember our director at that time walked in because she had an office, and then we were all sitting in another office as well. And she said, "Well, who'd like to work on this?" And it was like pin drop silence. Anyways, I think it was towards like the weekend or something like that. So I took it and I worked on it. I did the whole proposal and everything, put a little of my own sass. Because, my parents didn't pay all this money for me to go to school, to sit and fax letters.
Yes. Yeah.
No.
Yes.
I couldn't do it. Even back then, even though it was a necessary thing to do, I wrote the proposal, I wrote the strategy, and I just put her on her desk when I came in the next day.
Nice.
And that was it. And when she had come in, she came into our section and she was like, who wrote this? Who wrote this? And obviously everybody was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. And then I said, I did. And she said, you know how to write a proposal? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been to college. No big deal.
No, but it's we underestimate the youth.
100% we do.
And vice versa.
100%.
And so when you decide to take initiative, people will recognize it. And the other way around. Give an opportunity to people to take the initiative. Rather than saying, oh, I don't think this person, but if I give you enough opportunities, and I lay it out there and you decide to take it, that's the difference between you moving in from a junior executive to a middle executive.
Absolutely.
To a senior executive. But don't come to me saying, oh, I deserve to be a manager because you sent 5 emails, So I question that because we went through that growth.
Yeah.
And yes, I did still fax a lot of letters, but I was in a different light now. I was in the light where, wait a minute, she can do proposals. So then I started sitting in client RFPs and I was able to work on big clients.
Nice.
So Marriott International was one of the clients that I got to work with. And actually one of the people that I worked with, Jeff Strachan, and I hope he listens to this as well, is now working with me, when we work together. And he still says, I remember when Aida was still an intern. I was an intern, but I was so young at that time and so impressionable. But he took it to his point to say, I knew her back then and she still has that drive. And keep that drive. So just because you've gotten to a certain position, it's not enough.
You can't get complacent.
You've gotta want it enough to go to that growth. So that's the first advice. Number 2, don't compromise on your own time. I think one of the things that I didn't do very well, time box my own personal time. And I started doing that a lot better in my 30s.
Yeah, it's kind of the curse of the millennial generation, I think.
It is. Yeah, it is. And so, have fun and learn and enjoy and listen. Learn to listen. Speak less and listen more. This is advice I give to my kids. So, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, which means you double up the listening time.
That's so good.
Imagine me saying this in Arabic. It sounds a lot better. Please.
That's really good.
And then the third point, I think, is appreciate when somebody else also gets the success.
Definitely.
And learn from them. Because what happens is we build each other up.
100%.
So as I mentioned earlier, it's always going to be a competition. If you think, oh, well, he did better than me or he got this, but it's okay. There's always room to create something new.
Healthy competition.
Healthy competition, and learn from each other, synergize. Maybe he has or she has a set of skills that you don't know about. Maybe they have little things that are happening at home that you don't know about. Yeah. So there's a different ecosystem for every person. So really learn to appreciate others. And I think that's it. That's piece of advice. The first one being the longest one because
they're very solid though.
Critical.
Very solid. You're absolutely right on all of it. Really, we do underestimate the youth, and they're fresh off of a college education. If they've been to college and they have all of this knowledge bouncing around in their heads, they could do so much more than they think they can.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. I wanted to speak to you also about your work with the E7 Daughters of the Emirates.
Yes. Yeah.
Could you tell us, what they do, what the objective is, and your work there?
So, one of the things, bridging the gap between Emiratis and non-Emiratis, a couple of my friends and I, we decided this. So it's Esther Tang, Adela Acevedo, Aisha Hashimi, and myself. We all used to work in the same building. We were in Emirates Towers back then. And it was so funny because there were so many nuances and so many, I don't want to call them issues, but things like traffic or, finding the right person or balancing motherhood, etc. These concerns actually span across nationality and age. And so we decided to open a majlis called Promise of a Generation, POAG. And that was the first kind of youth type of majlis that was opened up back then.
Very cool.
It wasn't officiated or anything from that. But then out of it, those conversations, we discovered that there was a niche group of women niche group that were women or young girls that really needed a lot more advice, whether it was on a professional level or on a personal level. And that's where E7, standing for Emirates and 7 for the Summer Emirates, Banat Al Emirat. And so it started off more as a mentoring program for Emiratis first, and then we expanded it to non-Emiratis as well. So the role that we play, I sit on the board, but the role that the mentors and the mentees play is essentially creating, or at least finding a solvable issue and then going out there. And it's a 9-month program where essentially you learn, you develop, so you co-create. It doesn't matter what age group you're in, whether you're in college or whether you're not in college. It's essential vocational training that you probably wouldn't have gotten elsewhere. And also a lot of personal mentorship as well, where, a lot of them had a lot of questions about, can I continue? Can I have a job? And some of them have gone out to actually create businesses of their own, which we're very proud of, right?
Absolutely.
And so the goal is, if you do have something that you want to achieve and you want to get to a place where you're happy with yourself, then this is the kind of program that you should be a part of. And so, yeah.
That's very cool. And if someone listening were to want to get involved, where could they find more information?
Everything's on the website or on the social media.
Perfect. We'll link to that in the show notes. Aida, you are a journalist, a comms person, a master of ceremonies, a celebrity manager, an advocate, an activist, a mentor. The list goes on. I'm tired. You're also a mother, and you do all of this. And
let's not forget a wife.
And a wife,
and
that's right.
Wife and mother, because
they're two different jobs.
I call him my third child. No,
okay.
Just kidding.
That's way too many jobs. How on earth do you make all of that work and stay sane and put together and be as well-spoken as you are?
Look, if you took everything away and just kept my kids and my husband, I'd be happy. They're the best things I've done in my life. Best. And the reason I say this is we're raising 2 human beings. And I think when you see how well-behaved they are, how respectful they are, you've done something right. Because I could sit and I could write 10 million proposals and I could write 10, 100 million emails. No one's going to sit and remember that, right? I mean, those are KPIs that are registered and they come and they come and they go. But my biggest successes is when you see my kids. And one thing I think as women, this shout out to all the women, men do this very well. They will ask for help and they won't shy away. We want to do it all. You can do it all, but not at the same time with everybody.
Yes.
And so it takes a village to raise a family and to have what I have. Alhamdulillah, I have a very supportive family, a very supportive husband, and I built an ecosystem. And the ecosystem includes my family, you know, from my siblings and my husband's family. I have very close friends. So there is a network of people that have to help you. We have, help at home, but, we call them house managers, nannies. And like my kids understand that they're a part of the family as well. So you need to be able to let go in order to be able to develop yourself as well. And I've used this analogy everywhere, and people will tell you I say this all the time. Do you like pizza, Tom?
I love pizza.
Everybody loves pizza.
Yeah.
But, they never slice it equally.
No.
And you'll never get... What do you like as your topping? What's your favorite topping?
I like a 4 cheese.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But then you won't get the same amount of topping on every side.
That's true.
Your life is exactly like a pizza. Because at any point in time, I could be more mom one day, I could be more boss one day. And so I'd rather focus on the quality of that pizza than how much I ate of that pizza.
Absolutely.
And so my kids know, like when mama's with us, she's with us. Because you could spend 10 hours with your kids, but 8 of those hours you're on your phone.
Yeah, it's
chatting
quality
with your
hours.
friends. Yeah, and they get it. And it was a little bit harder when they were a little bit younger, but they're almost tweens. So there's less of me that's needed and more of their PS5s and all that other
stuff. This is
stuff.
the age where they want to hang out with you less, actually.
Yeah. So I kind of, now I'm like, okay, this is, but they know we have structure. This is family day at their other grandparents, so my husband's family. This is family day with our family.
Yes.
And they know TV time or screen time is between this time to this time. So it's very clear. But that discipline, I say, it's going to go a long way.
Yeah.
And I feel once you instill it in your family as well, I have to teach my family how to be disciplined as well with my kids, because I'm military.
Does this come from your work into your family, or does this come from your personality and then you brought it into your work and family?
My personality.
Okay.
I have major OCD.
Okay. Noted. How can I be more like you? Develop OCD.
No, okay. Don't be as bad as I am. It's a little bit better now, obviously. I've learned how to let go on a few things. And I think it also comes with age. I just turned 40 this year, and I'm like, oof, khalas.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to like the 40s.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what do I want? And
happy birthday.
Thank you. It was 6 months ago, but thanks anyway. Still relevant. Still afloat. But I'm happy. I'm happy now because I found a word that I want for my 40s. My friend, who's actually in her 50s, said, find a word that defines the decade that you're in. And the word that I want to focus on is clarity. So in my 40s, I want clarity.
As Jen would put it, you've entered your clarity era.
Yes. I want clarity now. So clarity in my decision making, clarity in what I want to make me happy, clarity in just clarity. So sometimes I don't have it, and it's okay, because you have ups and downs, but clarity. So yeah,
absolutely. I don't know that anybody can follow in exactly your shoes, but you certainly have put the bar sky high.
Thank
you. Such an impressive list of things that you've been involved with. You are also, just to add, are you still on the sort of women's board at DET?
Yeah. We still have a committee. Yeah.
And I know that this committee also, or just in general at DET, that there's a 50% split generally between male and female employees.
Yeah, I think it's on average. Yeah, approximately. Yeah.
What kind of things do you look at advocating for women in the workspace?
You know what's so interesting? So this whole work from home system, everybody, post-COVID, our Director General introduced it, I think, in 2018. And he first introduced it to the mothers.
Okay.
So it was work from home for mothers twice a month.
So he was ahead of the curve.
He was ahead of the curve. And we appreciate him for this. And then after that, I think it was 3 or 4 months, it worked so well with us that he then decided to expand it to all the employees. Obviously, during COVID, a lot of people realized that working moms are champions.
Yes.
There's not a big enough cape for COVID working moms, because I have to say it was the worst time ever.
Yeah.
Because you didn't know what you could be, because I'm a mother at home.
There's no delineation anymore.
Absolutely. But then that trickled on, and obviously post-COVID as well, we were able to support all the employees to work from home twice a week. So that's 8 days in a month. But other than that, it's generally a lot of the stuff that we do internally for women as well. So we do meet, once or twice a year. We do decide on some of the programs that we want to focus on women. We do have mentorship programs as well, but just general conversations that happen across the board. So from a policy making perspective, the committee is there to always, not necessarily decide on what activities to do, but making sure that there's proper career growth for the women, giving opportunities to the women. So that happens on a, daily, monthly, weekly basis as well.
And I know you've touched on this in the past, but where would you place and how important is male allyship in this kind of this committee? And
you cannot do it without men. I think that this fight for womanship, I don't want to sit in a room of women talking about what can we do only as women.
Yes.
I wouldn't be able to have this life if I didn't have my partner.
Yeah.
He is everything. We communicate, we talk, we're building a life together. And so, if you eliminate 50% of the population, because you're so focused on the other 50% to grow, then what happens with them? I'm a mother of boys.
Yeah.
So if I'm not talking about men and boys today, what's going to happen to my boys in the future? Are they going to have the same opportunities? Because I spent so much time emphasizing on just focus on women.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
So they see that empowerment is in supporting each other and not belittling the other, gender.
Absolutely.
Because, you have an agenda.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's very important to kind of orient the conversation correctly, because when we're talking about, especially in the UAE, this advocacy for women and women empowerment, we very much see it as a conversation that we should all be having with our male counterparts.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
It's not, one does not exclude the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you really delve deep, we've never actually had to fight for any sort of empowerment, and it's always been given to us. And
it's a different type of struggle, I think, than the one you would be seeing in the West.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we have so much more to offer and to give.
Yes.
And so we've now reached a point of our time where, rather than being asked, hey, would you like this? It's like we are taking those opportunities, and it's up to the women to actually decide, hey, I want to go forward with this and I want to do more here. And so there is a balance that has been created from the leadership level to, the federal level, to the government level, to the private sector level. So I actually don't see a differentiator. I see, there's a partnership.
Yeah.
And that partnership needs to yield, good results if you guys are speaking the same language, rather than, oh, you're the woman, so you do this, or I'm the man and I do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Aida, you have effectively exhausted the number of hats that I can continuously ask you about.
Need a bigger closet.
Yes, honestly. We kicked off the series, rather, to really try to get to know, put the spotlight on, champion and celebrate Emirati women that we find are highly impressive individuals that we know that we can put the spotlight on, because especially within our industry, sometimes you work so tirelessly, and the spotlight needs to be turned back on you. And I feel so privileged to have had the opportunity to have this conversation with you. Thank you for sharing so much of your wisdom, of your story, of your journey.
Thank you.
I want to give you the floor to wrap up and to leave us on any closing thoughts that you might have on Emirati Women's Day, on anything we talked about. It's up to you.
So first of all, thank you. It's been a delight. I think it's always nice to have a conversation, and I think even if you help one person with your story, you've kind of helped humanity.
Well, achievement unlocked. Absolutely.
Final words. Ooh, I feel it's such a there's such a finality on it, right? Have the thirst to learn. It's so important, you know. You hear it in quotes, and they always say, "Oh well, doctors always have to continue learning." But you, as a human being, I think when you stop learning, then you stop understanding, and you stop seeing, and you stop listening. And we live in such a connected world right now, but sometimes I have to say we're so disconnected. And there is a lot of talk out there, and you're talking about billions of people living on this planet. I think just have the hunger to learn, have the hunger to seek, and have the hunger to do.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much, Aida.
Thank you, Tala.